This episode of New Jersey Living, we are back for, I want to say, our third visit to Bayonne, New Jersey. We're taking a little bit of a different approach in this visit because we're not just exclusive to Bayonne. If you want to get some specific insights on Bayonne, absolutely check out my previous two episodes. This one, we are taking a look at which are some of the better suburb options outside of New York City. New York, we're going to have Far Rockaway, Queens, and of course here in New Jersey, we're going to compare it to Bayonne. Communities that are similar in certain respects, but different in others. You're going to have an opportunity to dive into some metrics, see a little video footage, but definitely towards the end, I want to get some insights from you as to which location you think is best. We're going to make our pitch right here based on the numbers. We'll see what you have to say in the end. So come along, let's get this started now. Welcome to New Jersey Living. My name is Corey Jones, and I'm a licensed realtor here in New Jersey with Coldwell Banker, team leader of the New Jersey Living Group and host of New Jersey Living, the podcast. Our goal is to provide 5-star content that is on par with our 5-star ratings on Google. So if you're looking to learn all things New Jersey, of course, the real estate market, dining scenes, social, entertainment venues, and iconic locations, then this is the channel for you. Go ahead and click like, subscribe, notification bell to stay updated on content just like this that comes your way on a weekly basis. For those who are in the market looking to buy, I do have a couple resources here I want to make sure I present and are available to you. There is a buyer's guide, whether you are already in the process of searching for a home or you're about to initiate that process. This gives you an overview of what the process looks like and how me and my team can assist you through that process. Also for buyers who are not in the area but are relocating to the area, we have for you a relocation guide that gives you insights on the broader New Jersey market, as well as different components of living in New Jersey with employment, for example, different types of things that are unique to the area that you would want to take into account when searching for potentially a home or a job in this area. Homeowners, we did not forget about you. We have 2 resources for you as well. You may not be looking to sell right now, but we do have for you one, a link where a QR code where we can get to you within 24 hours, a market valuation of your home. It is a significant investment. Know your value because that value absolutely changes year over year. Here in New Jersey, it appreciates at a pretty substantial clip, but you want to make sure you are on par with what you may think about what your value is. We can show you what the market is performing like in your neighborhood. And also for sellers, if you are cash curious, you'd like to know what a cash offer would look like on your property, I'm connected with a network of investors that will present and offer a cash offer on your property. Again, within 24 to 48 hours, you'd have that number just for keepsake or something you may want to have a conversation with that given investor about. So as I said in my lead in, from on-site recording in Bayonne, we are continuing this series of best suburbs showdown between New Jersey and New York. So in this case, we are going to be looking at Bayonne specifically, and we are getting one of the closer comparisons to a Bayonne location in New York with Far Rockaway, Queens. So we're going to take a dive into some housing and some other components of living in both areas, both housing costs, transportation, and I am introducing a new metric, which I have not used before, but it's a tool that we have at Coldwell Banker that really gives us a metric number to get an idea of what are the values, if you will, if we're trying to think of something more objectively or trying to pinpoint a numerical metric value on the strength of a move from one location to another. I'm going to present that and continue to present that data point moving forward as we do these best of series, no matter what locations that we're considering. So just to start off, we're going to continue to take in a little bit of footage of Bayonne because Bayonne, obviously we are here based in New Jersey. This is where we filmed for this episode. Take in some drone footage of a lot of the development that is really recent relatively to Bayonne. So when we're considering that east side of Bayonne, where we have, for one, cruise ships are in and out pretty consistently. Bayonne is one of the primary ports for cruise ships. So if you are someone who has a habit of always going down to Florida and did not consider Bayonne as an option, I would definitely suggest you take a look. Now, obviously, if you are traveling by ship, it's going to take you a little while longer to get down to the Caribbean compared to leaving out of a Florida port, but you are cutting out also the need to travel down to Florida, which is the location for the vast majority of cruise ships that are leaving the East Coast. Yes, there are some locations in Manhattan that cruise ships leave out as well. But the point is just to point out how the eastern edge of Bayonne, there's a lot of development just south of the terminals that are on that eastern edge of Bayonne. We have a lot of recent development over, if we go back just the past 15 to 20 years. There's a couple complexes right here. We'll flash up a couple pictures. Harbor Point is an apartment complex. Bayonne Bay is another. Those are right there, just really minutes away from what we have in terms of the shopping center that is right there off of Route 440. So you're going to take in some drone footage to see some of these sites. We are also just really accounting for how close in proximity to New York City Bayonne is, right? So Bayonne is just across from on the southern tip. It is directly across from Staten Island. And of course, to the east, there is basically Brooklyn right there directly across the Upper Bay, not far from the Statue of Liberty as well, when we're accounting for the geographic locations of how close Bayonne and New York are together. Now we're going to see different scenes throughout this episode. One scene I'm going to flash up here. This is just a drive down Broadway, which is the main thoroughfare. One of the main, there are probably a good 4 roads that traverse north and south in Bayonne. Broadway, really, I would consider the main because that's where most of the retail is. The other roads have a lot of residential, and while there's some residential on Broadway, there is a lot of retail there. So Bayonne is one of those places, historically has that quieter community feel. It's just outside of more urban areas like Jersey City, but again, has that more family, suburban feel in terms of its history. A lot of walking type of places to go to. You wouldn't have to drive, right? So you could easily walk to any of the local shops for bagels, pizza, cafe, great cuisine of variety, right? So whether it be something that's Italian, you can get now plenty of Hispanic food. There's any those who are watching that are in Bayonne or who have history in Bayonne, drop some of those places that you've been to. I've been to a good number, but I'm not from there. So there's definitely people out there who know the area in depth because they day in, day out, visited and frequented and supported a lot of these places. So a lot of really good options in Bayonne. And not known as a high price or a high rent type of location, even given the proximity to New York City, which is one of the really feature points that we're going to bring up in this comparison to Far Rockaway. So we're going to get it started with just the maps in terms of where each are located. And on these respective maps, we're going to point out transportation right off the bat. Transportation in Bayonne, there are multiple stations that are light rail stations that all lead into Jersey City to Exchange Place, which takes you directly into World Trade. So a ride from the southernmost station, and this is a station that is right at that northern edge of Bergen Point, this being the 8th Street station. And if you've seen some of my previous episodes on Bayonne, you know that Bergen Point is one of the premium communities in Bayonne because it's a community where there's just not a lot of through traffic unless you have had an experience of going to the far southern edge of the peninsula to visit the park, or you have someone who you're visiting in terms of family or a friend. It's just a real quiet, family-oriented section that does not have a lot of through traffic. So the 8th Street station is right there. And a quick plug, while we're on the topic of Bergen Point, we have had the opportunity to be featured in Business Insider with an article on one of our recent sales of a 2-family listing right there in Bergen Point. So I'm going to flash up really quickly a feature of the article, and I'm also going to show you where to find that on the press link on my website. Just quick selfless plug there. So 8th Street Station, if I'm taking 8th Street Station into World Trade, I would project, depends on the day, depends on if you're at peak time or not, but I would say somewhere in the neighborhood of about 35 minutes that you can, from the time you get on the train, that is. So from the time you board or the 8th Street light rail train departs, gets up to the Exchange Place station, then you hop on to the path into World Trade. Just the train transport alone, we're talking probably about 35 minutes altogether. That's not accounting for walking time, waiting for a train to arrive, because that factors into the commute as well. But you get the point. It is a very, very easy commute, reasonable commute to get from the very southern tip of Bayonne into Manhattan. Those who may not be traveling to Manhattan then have to get to Brooklyn. Downtown Brooklyn, don't want to take the train, rather drive. Then the Bayonne Bridge leads right into Staten Island Expressway, Verrazano, Gowanus, you're right there into downtown Brooklyn. Of course, do you want to have to pay tolls and everything else? That's a whole different conversation, but it is accessible, relatively easily accessible by car to get from Bayonne into Brooklyn. Brooklyn from my home, and I don't live in Hudson County at all. I live in Union County. I can and have traveled from downtown Brooklyn to my home in Union County in 45 minutes. Granted, this is later at night where there's no traffic, but with traffic, probably about an hour, I would say. I wouldn't go that far beyond an hour, because for me to get to JFK Airport is about maybe an hour 20, hour 15, and that's including traffic. So yes, that's a very reasonable commute to get from Bayonne by car into even a location like Brooklyn or downtown Brooklyn. Now let's take a look at Far Rockaway on a map. Far Rockaway is just south of JFK Airport. So both of these are really close to an airport. Far Rockaway is directly adjacent to JFK. Bayonne is just across Newark Bay from Newark Liberty Airport. So if we're considering transport from Far Rockaway, there is the MTA subway. There are, I want to say, 4 stations, if I'm counting correctly. And again, those people who are Far Rockaway folks, or you have history there, drop in some comments, give us some insights, make a case of your own as to what you value in terms of that Far Rockaway location. So these are all A train, right? So the A train goes through. The Long Island Railroad also travels into Far Rockaway, but those who are familiar with the LIR, as we call it locally, the Long Island Railroad has a lot of lines that just terminate, right? So this is a line that will terminate in Far Rockaway, so it's not traveling from Far Rockaway into the city. So where my wife grew up in Hempstead, Long Island, that station, for example, was an end line, right? So didn't go further down, but you could take it towards the city, eventually change at Jamaica and get into Manhattan from that location. So there's some exchanges. You can certainly take the LIR and get to the city, or you can take, which will involve some transfers, or the A train that will go direct. So there's some options by train for sure to drive in. And then there is the drive, which honestly, I would say getting into Manhattan would take longer from Far Rockaway. Downtown Brooklyn is going to be still close when you account for traffic from Far Rockaway to get into downtown Brooklyn. But I guess depends on the day, probably would be a little faster in Far Rockaway compared to Bayonne. So from a transport standpoint, we always kind of factor in Manhattan, because Manhattan is the primary hub for where a lot of people work. There's more employment there than you're going to find people working in the other outer boroughs. So I absolutely give check mark to Bayonne when it comes to transport to Manhattan. Next item is we're going to jump into housing. And when we take a look at housing, this is really the feature piece that I know a lot of people are looking for when we're talking about different locations. What is happening in the real estate market? So we're going to look at 2 different sources here. I'm going to flash up first I am going to start with the recent sales in Far Rockaway. And I know of those who are newer to the channel often ask, why are we looking at recent sales? I do, in some instances, show current market activity. Sales tend to give you a better idea of what properties are actually selling for, which can be a little different than where they're listed. All right, so I'm going to feature both recent sales in the month of November. We're now early December 2024, and I'm going to take a look at what activity happened in November, and I'm specifically in this case looking at multifamily properties. And reason being multifamily is that both markets have a pretty robust inventory, number one, and number two, a lot of buyers who, whether there be a investor or a first-time buyer, are considering multifamily inventory because of the potential income generating units that provide revenue, right? So this is something that a lot of buyers are going to consider as a first time. I'm finding more buyers looking at this as a first time buy opportunity. I wish I had that mindset when I bought my first home, but you know, that's neither here nor there. But I'm going to focus specifically on that market. So here we're going to take a look at the recent multifamily sales in Far Rockaway. All right, so in looking at the Far Rockaway sales, we're going to look strictly November, and there's a few in here. Let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then that then goes into October. And let's just take a look at price points, and we're also going to take a look at total number of bedroom and baths. This one is a fair price to start off with at $783. 5 bedrooms, 2 baths. Pay attention to beds and baths because they often tell the story of what the units, how they were divided inside, or how they were composed of inside. Not always you can just assume, because there are, for example, if you have a 5 bedroom, 3 bath, there could be some multifamily homes have 4 bedrooms, 2 baths for 1 unit, and then just have an apartment that's a 1 bed, 1 bath that's the second unit. So that does happen, but we're just gonna have the general assumption that they're relatively evenly split. So we see a $783 price point. We see a $498, right under $500,000. That is a very, very attractive price point. 6 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. We see that that was a $532 beach. Right, so that's another component that we'll point out too with Far Rockaway. I mean, you do have that. There's more of a beach-like environment, right, and water access. Even though Bayonne is a peninsula itself, you're not going to find marinas or really beach type of environment in Bayonne. All right, so you'll find far more of that in Far Rockaway than you will in Bayonne. But that's a very attractive kind of price point. It appears that that door may have been boarded, so this might be a distressed, very well could have been a distressed home that was purchased, and that price would reflect just that. Then we see something that is definitely complex. This has luxury 2-family, 1.4, right? 6 beds, 3.5 baths, 1.4, another $1 million plus. There's not, and this is just kind of a giveaway, but there's not a lot of $1 million plus inventory when it comes to multifamilies that are 2 families in Bayonne. All right, you get to 3 and 4, yes, certainly, but not a lot of 2. So we have that. We have a $900,000. This was another 2-family. With 7 beds and 2 baths. All right. And then our final November sale would have been at $585, 7 bed, 3 bath. And this one, we're going to take a quick peek to see if there are any interior pictures, which there are not. I wanted to see if condition wise, this was something that was a bit of a fixer-upper also. But we see, so our general range, we are seeing that you can be somewhere in the 500-ish kind of range up higher, right? 500 kind of range or all the way up to 1.4 million for Far Rockaway. So now we're going to take a look at the niche.com metric. This is a metric that I've been using just to give an idea about the general community in relation to housing costs. So here on niche, we see that median home value, and as I've said in other episodes, it's important to keep in mind, this is not reflecting the median value of homes that are currently listed on the market. This is just the homes in that community. So the median home price for Far Rockaway is just under $700,693. This is not specific to multifamily either. This is just everything: condo, single family, multifamily. 53%, as we can see, fall within that range of 400,000 to 750, and 38% are above. And you can even see on the side where there's some information about the rental market as well for that location. So keep that in mind as we come back to look at the comparables for Bayonne. We'll flash those up side by side once we complete the Bayonne review. All right, so now let's take a look at Bayonne. With Bayonne, these are all of the multifamily sales. All of these fell within the two-family, none were three-family or more. They were all two-family properties. And we're looking at these, and we can see right away, you see fives, you see sixes, and you see many of them have similar, not the same, but many of them have similar two-level type of layouts with a garage, right? So this is something that you can account for in the majority of cases for Bayonne. There's going to be a garage and or driveway for a multifamily home. Not in every case, but in the majority, just as you see right up here. You see on the low end, we're looking at 540. On the high end, we don't have $1 million in the recent sales. The highest priced property that did sell, and this is at 96 West 29th Street. This sold at $925, 6 bedrooms and 5 baths. I do recall showing one of these properties. This is the one on East 26th Street with a 2-car garage, and that's at $840, right? So you can, just by looking at this, get a really good idea from this list. And I'm going to pick one of these to flash up. I'm going to try to pick something that was somewhat in the middle, and I will go with 105 Lexington Ave, and this is a two-family that was 4-bedroom, 3 full baths. This one has a 1-car garage and driveway. Important to account, those are 2 parking spots. Off-street parking is an absolute premium in a location like Bayonne, very much like your core urban areas. Our interior photos show hardwood floors. Take note, this is not something that is super updated, renovated. Just looks, for the most part, very well maintained, but you can see in terms of some of the carpeted areas in one of the units, you can tell by the kitchens, particularly in one of the units, bit dated. But because of location of being in Bayonne, this is definitely something that's going to land above the $700,000 price point. And as it pertains to location, being located in the Bergen Point section of Bayonne also is another premium factor to consider, right? So this gives, again, case in point of why location matters. All right, so looking at our Bayonne metrics for our housing, now that we've taken a look at what that market looks like, a close look at one specific property, let's take a look at the overall cost. Median is at $413. So think about Far Rockaway, it being, again, this is everything. This is condo, single family, multifamily. Far Rockaway was just under $700,000. This is just above $400,000, right? So that goes to show the differences between the two right there. Bayonne, 47% of the market is somewhere in a $400,000 to $750,000 range. Again, this is not just properties on market. This is everything, and this is median price. And 37% being between 200 and 400. All right, so there's a pretty notable inventory of condo that's in Bayonne, and then 6% above 750,000. So the affordability factor goes a long way. We're going to revisit this again when we get towards the end and we do our side by sides. So we've considered transport to Manhattan specifically via train for both locations. We considered housing costs for both locations. There's a lot of other things that we could dive into as well, including the quality of some of the restaurants and green spaces, things of that nature. But I do have a metric that takes into account all of these factors, including employment and quality of living. And the tool that we're going to use is called the Move to Meter tool that is exclusive to Coldwell Banker. And this tool accounts for everything. And basically what we do is we take a zip code and we say, moving from this zip code to this zip code, what would be the rating for, or the quality of that move, right? So that meter is generating all these data points and is giving a score anywhere from 0 to 100. Of course, a score of 0, which means that's not a great idea, right? That's not a great move, not a quality move from going from this zip code to the other. A 100 means go ahead and start packing your bags. You need to move tomorrow. So now what we're going to consider is what is the ratings for each one of these. And so we're going to flash up the move meter for each of these and we'll scroll down a little just so you can kind of see what some of the metrics look like in one versus the other. But we're going to start with Bayonne, moving from Bayonne to Far Rockaway. So once we plug in these zip codes, what we came up with is a score of 62. So the 62 score out of 100, it doesn't really ring any bells. It doesn't really make you salivate or say, hey, look, I really need to take a deeper dive because I may want to make this happen. All right. So 62 is somewhat on the lower end of a score. Obviously, if you did have to make that move for whatever reason, it's not terrible. It's not the end of the world, but it's not necessarily something that jumps out to you as very favorable. So again, we'll scroll through. You'll see some of the metric items that are in here. Home prices, the way these are generated, they all come through different data sources. So although what we saw in niche data point was a little different from the one that we have here, because here this is taking a 5-year estimate from the US Census. So this is going over a 5-year period, right? Versus niche being something that's more recent. All right. So you'll see housing comparisons, and then you see different factors. The weather grade is going to be just about the same. We're in the same area. Air quality, education, unemployment rates, income taxes, utilities, groceries. So yeah, everything is going to pretty much be factored in all together with these various data points to come up with what that metric score looks like. So keep that score in mind. Bayonne to Far Rockaway, a 62. Now we look at Far Rockaway moving to Bayonne. So we punch in the zip codes and then we come up with a score of 82, 20 points higher. So again, this is totally objective. This is not me giving an opinion as a New Jersey realtor and Coldwell Banker. We're more than national. We're international realty firm. This is no bias whatsoever to New Jersey. We exist on both sides of the Hudson, New York and here in New Jersey. 82. All right. So again, we'll scroll down. You'll be able to see some of that same data just reversed in terms of the order. And it is an 82, which means the quality is pretty significant. It's a pretty notable step in the right direction if you want to go from that location over to Bayonne. All right, so now let's go back. We're going to do another. So with trains, we already said check mark for Bayonne over Far Rockaway. Absolutely, you'll get to be able to get to Midtown Manhattan faster, even the financial district, right? The southern end of Manhattan, you'll get there a lot faster, Bayonne compared to Far Rockaway. Then we took a look at housing. So going back to our two housing features in terms of what we pulled off of niche for both, we have Far Rockaway, and you can see right offhand, median at roughly 693. Then we have Bayonne 413, right? relatively substantial difference between the two as we see these side by sides. Take a look at where the bulk of the properties are priced, the price point of the properties, right? So Bayonne, you see those bars, those larger bars on the lower end, right? Not all on the higher end. So that gives you, again, affordability factors. So we're comparing those side by side. So when it comes to housing costs, it goes without saying 100% Bayonne is going to get the check mark. And finally, we are just going to flash up the two move meter scores for the two respective locations. Move meter score from Bayonne to Far Rockaway. That move generated a score of 62. A move from Far Rockaway to Bayonne generated a score of 82. So again, hands down, Bayonne gets the check marks. I know many of you all are used to the big three. Those who are not familiar with that term, take a look at some of my other episodes where I am rating the main factors of different communities within New Jersey in terms of level of demand, right? We're not going to use those as nearly as much when we're factoring in some of these best suburbs, New York versus New Jersey. But the move meter is absolutely something that is totally independent. It is totally objective. There's no subjectivity whatsoever with my own opinion or leanings as a New Jersey realtor. So in this case of a best suburb, Bayonne wins by a consensus 3 check marks over Far Rockaway. So I want to thank everybody for tuning into this. Those who, again, if you live or have experience in either community, absolutely drop in some insights here, drop in your own opinions. Again, give some experiences that you've had in either location. Make some cases for, especially businesses. If you have an opportunity to support a restaurant or support a business that's local to either of these communities, absolutely flash that up. Ultimately, we want to have this channel as a value add for everyone who participates. Okay, so definitely drop that into the comments section. Be sure again to click like, subscribe, notification bell. Buyers, again, take advantage of these resources. Buyer's guide, relocation guide. Homeowners, feel free. Take advantage of some free services that come to you within 48 hours of getting either a current market analysis of your home, no obligations, just for your knowledge sake, or if you want a cash offer presentation just to know. If you're just what I call cash curious, throw that out there on this form. I'll get something to you. Again, no obligations whatsoever. So I want to thank everybody again. We're coming up with some more of these episodes of Best Ofs, and I am hopeful that this will give some added insight to those and just added entertainment for those who definitely have experienced these places as a resident or visited and just enjoy reminiscing on what you are already familiar with. All right, so thanks again for tuning in. Stay safe and stay tuned to New Jersey Living.